to host our first panel of the afternoon on marketing the good. As we welcome Sonalie and the speakers to the stage, please respond to the first audience poll for today that will pop up on your device. It is poll 1.11. Please welcome Sonalie and the speakers.
Hi, everyone. I think I'll sit in the middle, maybe?
Sure.
Yeah? Can everyone hear me? Okay. All right. Welcome. So I think we have a poll that we've asked you to participate in. If everyone can just open their app and join the poll, because we're gonna announce the results before we get started. But great, thank you. So I'm Sonalie Figueiras. I run Green Queen, which is Asia's largest sustainability media. We cover all the topics that are being discussed in this room. We've been doing it a long time, so communicating about sustainability is something I know a little bit about. The conversation has changed, I would say, over the last 10 years. Certainly when I started Green Queen as a tiny little blog, everyone thought I was crazy and told me that the green industry was never going to happen. I think we can all agree that thankfully that was completely the wrong prediction, and that instead it's, I think, all anyone is talking about these days. I've got an incredible panel with me, some of whom I know pretty well. So I'm really excited. So we're going to be talking about, from a corporate and commercial point of view, how do you communicate sustainability in a way that is authentic and that doesn't create a sort of veneer of greenwashing. So before we get started, let's introduce the panelists. To my extreme left, I've got Laura Offe, who is the co-founder of Meraki Hospitality Group. If you haven't eaten at one of her restaurants, you're missing out. I'm going to let her tell you a little bit about herself.
Hi, everyone. As Sonalie said, I'm Laura. I'm the co-founder of Meraki Hospitality. My brother and I founded Meraki in 2017. We opened the first restaurant, Umanota. Then we opened a second, Bidu, and a third. We opened Umanota in Paris. And just this year opened Mama Always Said in Central. What didn't start as a concept for us, which was sustainability and more importantly social consciousness, has now taken quite an important role in the business, and we're looking to make a stronger impact moving forward. And I think we'll cover that a little bit with Sonalie today. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. To my immediate left, we've got Christine Chow. She is the founder and creative director of an upcycled and sustainable fashion brand in Hong Kong called Tove and Libra. It's incredible what she's doing in terms of helping to reduce waste and bring transparency and also kind of a slow fashion ethos to the industry, which desperately is crying out for disruption. So Christine, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Well, hi. I was previously working in New York, and then I moved back to Hong Kong about 11 years ago to take over a clothing manufacturing business that had been in our family for 3 generations. And so we had this deep expertise of garment making, but after 10 years of working with big corporate fashion brands, I realized how far behind fashion is in terms of really adopting sustainable practices. And also, I feel like the local fashion scene really sorely lacks more independent local brands. So we launched our own fashion label about 2 years ago. And that's how I met Sonalie. We upcycle some leftover designer fabrics, and we try to incorporate a lot of various sustainable processes in our production cycle.
Thank you, Christine. To my right, we've got Linda Yan, who is the Director of Communications, Public Affairs and Sustainability at L'Oreal, a name that I hope needs no introduction. It's a really important role because most of us will touch one of L'Oreal's products on a regular basis in our household and in our regular life. So it's really important for you guys to have such a voice here. So tell us a little more, Linda.
Thank you, Sonalie. I'm from L'Oreal. As you know, L'Oreal globally we have many brands, so we have close to 40 brands globally. In Hong Kong, we have over 20 brands, so from shampoo to skincare to cosmetics, in drugstores and department stores, and very likely that you have our products at home. I'm very happy to be here and talk about consumer. How do we engage consumers on the journey of sustainability, and sharing some of thoughts. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. We're hoping to get the results of the poll. Are they coming up soon? Or shall we dive right in? All right, we'll give you a little more time to connect on the app and answer the poll question. So we're here to talk about communicating about sustainability. And as sustainability has become the topic du jour all over the world, and especially for corporates, it's becoming harder and harder to be a brand, to be a corporate, and not have a view and a message about sustainability. So how do we do it without without greenwashing? Maybe Linda, I think you might be the best person to start on this one.
Thank you. I think to engage consumers, I'm not sure marketing the good is the best term, because if it is good, then you don't theoretically you don't need to market. People naturally want something that's good. I think when we look at consumers, we are consumers ourselves, right? So when we make consumer choices, then it's many times it's a combination of different criteria aspects. So when it comes to our products, skincare, be it skincare or be it cosmetics, functionality is a key element. So I don't think consumer would go for a product that's very sustainable. It doesn't work. Like if I wash my hair, it doesn't work, then I won't go for that product. So it's as a business, I think our role is to provide the most sustainable options for consumers that works very well. So functionally works, and at the same time it's affordable. And then it connects with consumers on a sustainable value that they hold. So it's really, I think it's a combination of different aspects of products when it comes to consumer products. And I think the word greenwashing is interesting. I think it's also how we look at sustainability. Because I think we're all in the journey to sustainability. It's because it's a journey. We're never going to be perfect, and especially for, I think big company or small company, you're never going to be perfect. So it's really, I think the credibility comes from small steps, where you're transparent about what you are, about what you do. That you also have a longer view towards what you're aiming at. So for example, at L'Oreal, just a couple of months ago, we announced the global sustainability goal towards 2030. So it's a very comprehensive goal. It covers different aspects, covers carbon, covers water, biodiversity, because a lot of our products use plant-based sources, covers resources. Just as an example, we made the commitment globally that by 2025, in 5 years' time, all of our plants will be carbon neutral. So it covers manufacturer plants, covers main plants. Like for Hong Kong, we don't manufacture, but in the office, then we have, we need to be carbon neutral. And also because we manufacture a lot of products, so we've also made the commitments that in 2030, all the plastics that we use for packaging are going to be either reused plastics or from bio-based materials, so no virgin plastics. The other commitment we made was that by 2030, that all the water that we use for our plants globally are going to be in a loop, so either reused, recycled. I think it's not easy for many times for big companies to make these bold commitments, because every market is different, every product is different on the journey towards sustainability. So it's having that roadmap, and also I think the transparency in being bold to talk about where we are, recognizing that you're always going to be somewhere, right? Not in a perfect. a spot, but being bold and transparent and saying this is something we are, this is what we're moving towards. I think being that.
So just building on that, so we've just gotten the results of the poll. 72% of people, so a vast majority, believe that active greenwashing is a problem. So just to follow up with what you said, is there really strong buy-in at the C-suite level in L'Oreal to really commit to sustainability? I mean, you've mentioned some of the goals, which are obviously very, very impressive, and hope you can reach them. But do you feel that on a day-to-day basis in your job, that everyone in the company does believe this is extremely important and needs to be baked in at all levels?
It is a really good question because I think there are two ways to look at it. I have not been in L'Oreal for a long time, so I've been with the company for a little more than a year. I think if your goal to communicate sustainability is just to do packaging, then it tells with time. You can't really hide. But I think if you're really serious about making an impact, achieving a realistic goal, then it also tells with time. So I think time tells. I think at L'Oreal there is very strong commitment from global, from Europe, where sustainability, I don't think it's just an objective by a small group sustainability team. It has to be owned by the CEO, otherwise it won't work. So everybody has to, it has to come from the top, and then it has to be owned by the business, because eventually many decisions in big companies are made by business. If the business guys do not believe that sustainability should be a key element in decisions, they won't work at all. So it's not something that the sustainability team works, right? So it should be.
You can't have a separation.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's what I think.
Thanks, Linda. So we're going to jump over to a bit of a different industry than fast-moving consumer goods, which is fashion, an industry that, let's face it, is being battered in the press and the headlines all the time when it comes to sustainability, but also things like ethical labor. One of the things about fashion that's a difficult thing is that we might need more, so we might need to eat. We can't survive without eating, but we can survive without buying new clothes. So how do you kind of balance this idea of an industry that essentially is encouraging consumption with a sustainable, conscious approach?
Well, I mean, I think we consider our brand as being advocates of slow fashion, not no fashion. And women just love getting dressed. What we feel, though, is that the fast fashion industry has kind of just taken things out of control. I don't think slow fashion is a new idea. I feel it's what I grew up with. And it's perfectly fine for everyone to enjoy fashion in moderation, like we used to. And the issue with fast fashion is they've kind of brainwashed a whole generation in a way to think quickly, buy often. And that's what we're trying to turn the tide against in a way. So, I think it's people need to enjoy life. People want to enjoy life, and we don't want to take that away from them because that will make them turn away from your message, right? We want to create products that we feel are functional, that people can see how it can fit into their lives, but it simply helps them maybe replace buying 5 cheaper, poorly made, unethically made items, for example.
So what are the do's and don'ts for you of communicating that to your prospective customer base?
So from the beginning, I think we felt that one of the differentiating factors for our brand is that we come from a background of experience and technical expertise, where a lot of fashion brands now we feel are being started by celebrities or KOLs. So we wanted to incorporate education in our marketing and our consumer-facing materials. And that's also one thing where we feel like corporate fashion, they don't want consumers to be educated because they want you to be purchasing impulsively. So we're happy to educate customers. We love getting out there physically in terms of meeting customers at pop-ups, at our shops. And we know a lot of customers have heard of sustainable fashion ideas, but and sometimes we might live in certain bubbles where you think it seems like everyone around you has heard of sustainability and it's such a buzzword now. But we've met a vast majority of everyday locals who barely have heard of sustainable fashion, and maybe they've heard of Tencel or some idea of upcycling, but they don't really know. But we believe they're eager to learn more. And every time we talk to people and they do learn more, then they're truly engaged with the brand and they appreciate it. And I think that is what is going to make them come back in the future.
So can you give examples of the format of some of this education?
So,
What's worked really well?
So, for example, on our clothing, we have tags to identify what might be the sustainable point of that piece. So, upcycling is a big part of our design program. So, about half our collection, we make use of upcycled fabrics that would otherwise just be marked as trash, for example. And so consumers might have heard of upcycling, and when they see that, this is upcycled, they will ask us, what does that mean? Or maybe some people think it's recycled. So we talk to them about it, and we've created blog posts on our website that explain exactly what upcycling is, and also what is the process of doing that. Like, why isn't it cheaper to use somebody's leftover fabrics? It's because, first of all, we have to gather and review what's left over. We have to pick from other people's leftovers to create a cohesive collection of our own. We might have to deal with small leftover quantities. So, we've written a lot of blog posts and social media posts. We have tags in our clothing that instead of multiple tags, we've now created a QR code that link to some of that information. So if people are curious, we encourage them to then look that up further.
Thank you, Christine. I think we'll cover a little bit more later, but I'd like to dive into a small chat with Laura. One of the things we wanted to highlight on this panel is kind of Laura and I's relationship and how it came to be that I invited her on the panel. So we launched an initiative at Green Queen last year. Unfortunately, it's on hold because of the corona, but it's called the UN SDG Plant-Based Dinner Initiative. And the idea was to connect with an omnivore restaurant, so not a vegetarian or a vegan restaurant, and challenge them to create an entirely vegan menu. And then we would connect with an NGO that was based in Hong Kong that was addressing an SDG. So each dinner, the idea was to have 17 dinners. We've done 6 so far until we had to stop. And each dinner was connected to the one SDG and with an NGO speaker that would come and for 15, 20 minutes, talk about that SDG, talk about their work in the city towards achieving that SDG. And then every diner would then enjoy a plant-based dinner. And so I approached Laura. We knew each other because of the restaurant scene, and she was incredibly generous and said, let's do it. And let's not just do it with one restaurant, but with 2 restaurants. And they both ended up being sold out events. And after that, you launched permanent plant-based menus at each restaurant. And I later found out that your brother, your co-founder, was pretty skeptical about serving vegan food. So would love to hear more about how that helped you kind of, focus on sustainability and your experience with that.
Yeah, I think it was a turning point. I think for our vision of what sustainability can be. I think we've always been conscious about how we're impacting the community, but it was mostly about how we were impacting our team members and our customers. And when you approached us about doing this initiative, we've always put forward vegetable dishes, and it's a very strong point that we have in our menus, but it was never something that we thought that we should definitely delve into. And when we saw that Bidou,
We couldn't even seat everyone.
No, we couldn't even sit everyone. And then Umanota as well, which Umanota is a Brazilian Japanese restaurant. So of course people think only meat. And so when the chef really worked on using traditional dishes but making them vegan, it really showed first of all what our teams can do, and what a different approach can be taken when it comes to food. And secondly, as well, just the impact it had in terms of certain people viewing us differently, and also for my brother seeing that the market was there, and there was. I mean, it was something that we needed to look into more in a different way, and I think that was really important for him to see that.
And I felt like also after I saw a lot more sustainability initiatives involving your restaurant. So I think people saw you in the marketing for that, and then they thought, well, we're going to approach them to do other things. And so it kind of, the communication of that kind of put you in a different space.
Absolutely. That really made a huge difference for us. There were a lot of initiatives that we were doing already. We never used straws from the beginning. We've always used compostable or biodegradable packaging. We have very little waste because of the way that our menus are designed. It's something that's always been ingrained in the company. But I think that we were never seen as, we're not a Mana or we're not a Treehouse. We don't do everything that they do. And I commend them for everything that they do, but we've never said that we were going to go in that direction. But we wanted to have more and more of an impact. And by doing these Green Queen dinners, people saw us as, okay, we can do things with them because that's the direction that they're taking. And today we've partnered with Food Made Good, for example, that keeps us on our toes at all times and makes us think about how we can do things differently. We work with Devana as well at Distinctive Action in terms of showcasing their products. So there's a lot more that we do that we don't necessarily talk about, but that's because we don't always talk about everything we do.
But I think let's delve a little more into that, because on one hand we've got this poll about greenwashing, and you've got a lot of companies that talk a lot but do a little. And then what I found fascinating working with you was how much you're already doing but not talking about it. And I think, do you feel like that experience showed you that communicating about it is actually quite important? Because sometimes people are in their own bubbles, as Christine said, and you need to say what you're doing. You can't just expect, that people will discover it on their own.
Yes, definitely. I think that we, as people, my brother and I are quite, not, I wouldn't say shy, but we don't like to put ourselves forward. But we found that, and that was a goal actually for 2020, which didn't really work out so well, but was to showcase more of what we do and how we do things differently, and trying to explain to our community as well that we're trying to have more and more of an impact. And I think that also what helped us a lot was actually partnering with Food Made Good, because we were able to see what we're doing today and what we can do more of, and how we can be held accountable. I think that's the most important thing, is to see what we can do better.
Can I just very quick? I think it's a very good point, Laura. And in communicating, as we talk about greenwashing, I just want to add a perspective, because I've always been in communications. I think the way to look at this is the objective of communication. So if we communicate about sustainability for the purpose of showing everybody, look at how great we are, then that clearly is greenwashing. But in sustainability, especially such a complex topic, you need to communicate many times for the engagement of stakeholders, many times for consumer education, many times you have to show people what can be done. So if you're communicating for the purpose of driving change, of engaging consumers, of let's do it together, then it's important. I think it's important to communicate in sustainability. And I think totally greenwashing is an issue, but many times, and also let's be mindful, many times companies, because they're so afraid of being seen as greenwashing, let's just don't communicate at all. And it's also not good. So I think it all comes down to the reason of why you communicate about what you do. Is it really for the cause, for the issue, for the solutions, or is it just packaging, I think?
I love that you added that, Linda, but the next part of the panel, I really want to talk about, what are the don'ts? Like we know what are the do's now. We've covered all these positive things, but what doesn't work? Maybe you could start in terms of what do you think really is where there's a disconnect?
So I'm still learning a lot about sustainability. I think just the way that I look at sustainability is that it comes down to the reason of why you do what you do. And I think sustainability is such a topic that I don't think any company or any one sort of stakeholder can do alone. So I think some of the don'ts is not just be too self-centered in terms of communicating sustainability, not just about us, me, look at what we've done, but look at through the lens of the consumers, the stakeholders, the suppliers, right? What other people can do, what other people can learn. I think that's where you shift the focus into the issue and not just look at how green we are, right? How green we are, like big companies. I think it comes down to many times the mindset of why do we do what we do, and then when you're on the right mindset of let's work on this issue together. It's not about like if I may just talk about a little bit about the issue. So just yesterday, I think it was just hot from the press that we globally, this is not in Hong Kong yet, but globally we premiered the cosmetic bottle made from CO2, right, from gas. So from gas, so it's not something L'Oreal can do on our own. So we partner with Total, we partner with a tech company where we capture the CO2, we make that into alcohol, and then make that into materials for bottle. I think many issues when we are looking at, it's not about us shining, but it's about us. What is our role in the issue, and then focus on that. Then it gives you a lot more credibility in talking about the issue. So it's less me focused, but more issue focused.
Thank you, Linda. So I think if I recap, we've got two main points, which is one, talk about the why, and two, involve other parts of the community. Don't make it too self-centered. Christine, what are your don'ts?
I think it's similar to Linda's point as well, and also to your point earlier. We've always felt that you have to appeal to consumers on their own level. There are very few people who are really just buying products because it's sustainable. People care about price, they care about whether it looks good, it feels good, whether it works, and whether it fits into their lives. So you have to find a way to make sustainability issues also be relevant to people's lives, to your customers' lives. If you talk about sustainability as just throwing around buzzwords, I think, there's so many people doing that now, and that just disappears in a flash. So you really have to figure out, like for us, for example, we find that there's already a lot of niche eco fashion that obviously looks eco, and our challenge was to create a brand that looks like a regular work to weekend brand but has sustainable practices and ethos behind it. So then it's easy for customers to accept this message.
Thank you. Okay, so what I'm getting from you, Christine, is really don't throw around buzzwords and really find the relevancy for your customer base, which is
Absolutely. I think, sometimes there are companies that are in a rush to jump onto the bandwagon, and maybe they'll create a sustainable product or a sustainable program that doesn't really gel with maybe what they have existing. And I think people can smell that inauthenticity.
absolutely. Thank you. Laura, what are your don'ts? What do you think are the pitfalls here?
I think, well, we're a much smaller entity, and I think for us, it's not spreading yourself too thin and trying to concentrate on what you can handle, and what you can have an impact on. I think we could do so much more for sure, but I think if we can concentrate on certain aspects that we can really control, then that's the easiest path in order to have bigger impact in the future.
So from a communication point of view, that would be also don't overpromise.
Yes, absolutely. Don't overpromise, and don't. I guess there are two ways to see it. It's a do and a don't at the same time. Is maybe to communicate more, as you said, about what we do, but also only communicate on the things that you're already there, not what you're gonna be doing in 6 months' time, for example.
Okay, we've got some questions from the audience, and it's about 10 minutes to on the panel, so I'm gonna start asking these. I don't know if all of you can answer each, so I'm gonna stick with you, Laura, on this one. Can the panel share a key measure from their sustainability marketing communications that most impressed their decision makers or board? So I guess in your case, it would be maybe you have investors.
No,
Nope, it's you.
it's just my brother and I. Yeah.
Okay, wow. So maybe you just tell us what was when it was one of the biggest successes where you really saw the impact.
Well, it's definitely your dinners. I think that I've always talked about sustainability and doing more with the company. And Alex is driven by other things, I think. And so when we saw just how popular the dinners were, he actually thought, okay, well, there's a market that is where sustainability is such an important factor for this consumer base that we need to be more into it. And I think that because of that impact, he was like, okay, well, you go do your thing now, and you push it forward, and so that we can have more of an impact in that field. And I think that that's really important because it's just me and him, but in other businesses, it's a lot of different people that are on the board. And if you have that those facts, those numbers, that revenue that's coming in, it's going to prove that, by marketing to that consumer, you're going to make a difference and you're going to be able to have that impact, then it's going to change people's mindsets.
That's wonderful. Christine, I assume you're also the founder and investor of your brand. So maybe you can share, one of your success cases or stories for the audience.
I feel one of the most important thing for us, because when we launched, we envisioned that, well, of course, now as for fashion, you have to be online. And so, but we found that Hong Kong was really not that accepting yet of online fashion. And then secondly, the most important thing is as a passionate and an independent brand, it was so important to meet people face to face. And so every time we did pop-ups and we just found the reception was so amazing. And I think that's also partly because, as I mentioned earlier, the education is also so important for customers because so many of them still don't quite understand all about sustainability yet. And many of us are creating these messages or IG posts. And the truth is people think that's nice. And then they swipe and they forget it because they still don't really know. So when you are in person, you're truly engaging them and answering the questions that they individually have. That makes such a big impact. So we've had amazing response in terms of that. And I think that's where also a small company can distinguish themselves from big marketing dollars where, they have huge billboards, they have huge campaigns, but they don't really have that kind of like authentic engagement on the ground.
Yep, that's very true. Do you want to share a success story, Linda?
I don't have a personal success story, but I want to share a case if that's
Yeah.
So it's difficult for me to have my own success story, but I think the way that I look at L'Oreal and something I really I think is inspiring is because we're in a FMCG company, and as you know, a lot of FMCG company likes to have quick wins, right? So, but for sustainability, it's really a topic that you have to take the time to invest, to study, and to come up with credible solutions. So, just a couple of months ago, globally in France, this is a product that we have. It's called Garnier. It's a hair products. It's the bestseller brand in France. We launched a label because we all have labels on products, and this is the environmental and social impact label, which measures the product's life cycle from the raw materials to the manufacturer to the transportation to the consumption. So all life cycles, and for every Garnier products, digitally, consumers can check the label. So this is really for consumers to understand the impact of their products. And it took 5 years to come up with the label. It's not easy. It's not something that we can do in a month. And for the company to invest in discussing with international panels to come up with the methodology, to do the labels and to be audited. I think it takes a lot of investment and commitment from the top to understand that this is something that we want to do. We're going to do it in the best way possible. We're going to do it seriously and willing to take the time, resources to do it. And I think that's something I think is really important.
So just to follow up from the earlier question, was that something that really impressed the decision makers and the board? Like, do you have an example of something that you did that maybe the decision makers weren't necessarily convinced, and then an initiative really showed them, okay, this is really working, this is really successful, like we need more buy-in into this?
So I think the way to look at it is, I don't think it's one single project that's going to be very extremely impressive to the board, but I think this is an example where the business can go to show the board, and this is something that consumers like, and this is something we can continue to do. And now in France, but later on we're going to expand to other brands. I think success with one brand, one aspect, is a very good evidence where you can convince the board, let's continue to do that. I think that's.
We actually have a follow-up question for you from someone in the audience asking about how L'Oreal is going to achieve the carbon neutral target in the office. So I think you said it was a manufacturing plant.
Right. So this is a global. So the carbon neutral target is a global target. It covers all the sites. So it covers manufacturing sites and administration sites as well. So like in Hong Kong, we have office. So it covers electricity. Right now in Hong Kong, we use 100% renewable energy for the office. So we only use 100%. Yeah, we only use renewable energy. And then FSC paper only for the office. It does take commitment from the management to see, maybe it will need a bit of investment, but this is something we need to do. So I think every market is different. Some markets are more complex than the others. Some markets have more size plants, but we don't have. So in Hong Kong, we focused on two things, like for L'Oreal. One, the office operation. The other area that we focus on in Hong Kong is the retail, because we have, the shops and we have department stores. So it's really focusing on how do we minimize impact in terms of delivering, in terms of local packaging, our design, eco-design of the shop. So I think focus on what we can do in Hong Kong to achieve the goal. Yeah.
Okay, I'd love to ask Laura and Christine to share some advice to the room in terms of if a young entrepreneur or a brand or a restaurant owner was coming to you and saying, okay, I want to start being more sustainable, communicating more about sustainability. What's your one piece of advice? Laura, go ahead first.
I would say surround yourself with people that know more about it. I think that's what has helped us a lot over the years, is by creating a community around ourselves that put a lot of importance in sustainability and that have the knowledge and the resources as well that we don't necessarily have. It's talking to someone like you, Sonalie. It's talking to Food Made Good that have a lot of resources. It's talking to people that are consultants in sustainability, et cetera, et cetera. I think that's for me and for Alex and I, it has been really helpful to have all these people support us and help us to do more and more every year. I think that's really the most important factor.
I love that. Learn from others. That's always good advice. Christine, what would be your one takeaway for budding fashion sustainable entrepreneurs?
I feel like it's important to pick a priority and get started, because too often we meet people who feel like they need to come up with something perfect or something no one else thought of. And sustainability, especially, is such a complex issue. And sometimes there are goals that are maybe even conflicting. So I think you have to pick what you feel is an important mission for your brand to achieve first and take that first step. And a lot of other things might fall into place along the way. And I think all of us are trying to improve all the time.
You can't do everything. You have to focus in order to get results. I think that's it. That's a great message. Any last? Oh, sorry, we have a follow-up question for you, Linda. Last question, and then I think it's the end. Could Linda explain further how the office in Hong Kong is fully powered by renewable energy? Are you purchasing renewable energy from the power companies?
Yes, we are. So we are purchasing renewable energy from the power company. For one, the other thing, the other things we're working on is it's important to work with NGOs. So we currently work with two NGOs. On the office operation in terms of just look at the overall energy efficiency, the waste reduction. And I think it's important because we're not experts. So it's important to work with NGO partners and to look at how can we minimize the impact. So
Who are the NGO partners?
so we work with A Plastic Ocean, Laura over here. We also work with VCycle, who not only on the office as well, but also they work with us on the recycling of the bottles at our stores. So I think NGO partners and really working with the technical experts are important to achieve the goal.
So there you have it. I think pick your goal, collaborate with others, be honest and authentic, and start small, but start. I think those are fantastic takeaways from a really great conversation. Thank you, everybody. And thank you, Rethink.
Thank you, Sonalie, and our speakers for the very interesting and very inspiring session on how your organizations are effectively communicating with your customers.